right, good evening, everyone. We're going to come to order. It's November 26, 2024, Bridgewater Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. The time is 7:02. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting specifying the time, place, and manner in which such notice was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6. Specifically, on January 9th, 2024, proper notice was sent to the Courier News and the Star Ledger and filed with the clerk at the Township of Bridgewater and posted on the Municipal Bulletin Board. Please be aware of the Zoning Board of Adjustment policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. If you're able, please rise for the salute to the flag. Good evening. We can have a roll call, please.
Chairman Foose?
Here.
Wiley?
Here.
Mrs. Amin?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
The absent for the record. Mr. Bongiorno?
Here.
Mr. Gajewski?
Here. Here.
Mr. Vesio?
Here.
Mr. Gabbett?
Here.
And for the record, Sarmad is present, Mr. Aller is present, Mr. Burr will not be present.
All right, thank you very much, Nancy. All right, this time I'm going to open up the meeting to members of the public that would like to speak on any land use matter that is not on our agenda this evening. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close that portion. We have no board minutes for approval. We have no resolutions. So, Rich, why don't you give us a quick update on what's pending in terms of applications?
So our list is getting a little longer, but so we have 7 matters now that are being carried by the board. They include 1200 Route 22 Land Investors and 1200 Route 22 LLC Holding. That is carried to December 10th, 2024, with an indication that there'll be a new notice published, I guess, shortly by the applicant. And then the rest of this list that I'll read off are all being carried to the January 14th reorganization meeting. That includes Visions and Pathways, 821 Bridgewater LLC in the Jewish Community Center application, CX Towers, St. Bernard's Church, Bridgewater Realty, which is the Starbucks application, and Belly Holdings. Again, all being carried to the reorganization meeting January 14th next year.
All right, thank you very much, Rich. All right, so tonight we have 821 Hawthorne Avenue. We have an applicant. Hi there. Is this yours?
This is.
Could you move it to the side? Like,
Sure.
so we can face
Mr.
the
Chairman?
audience and kind of move it a little bit over. That's perfect. Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, while they're setting up, I want to make an announcement that Visions and Pathways we announced it would be carried to December, I'm sorry, to January.
That was in the list I just read off, right? Visions of Pathways is off until January 14th, at which time they'll get a new date.
So if anyone's here for that case, we're not going to hear it tonight? I think we're okay. All right, thank you.
Sorry, I missed that.
All good.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, I'm the architect on behalf of the applicant, and we have the applicant here as well.
Great, just get your name and...
Like this? Excellent. Name is Gregory Ralph. Address is 1924 Route 22 East, Boundbrook, New Jersey, 08805. Last name is R-A-L-P-H.
Yep, if you both would just raise your right hands, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And again, for the record, both of you, your names, please.
Name is Gregory Ralph, R-A-L-P-H.
Jerry Ross Pierre. Last name is Pierre.
Thank you. You guys can sit down if you like.
Okay, I might get up and down for the
Sure
drawings.
thing.
So I was going to lead off with the application on behalf of the applicant. Would you like my qualifications before I begin, or?
Yes.
So Bachelor of Architecture from Roger Williams University, licensed in New Jersey since 2011, well-versed in the field of residential architecture, and I have appeared before numerous boards, most recently in Westfield and Pequannock.
And your license is current?
License is current and in good standing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're going to accept you as an expert in architecture.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, so diving into why we're here tonight. So we are here tonight for 3 variances related to an addition to a primary dwelling and related to a garage construction that's proposed. Those variances are for FAR, where 0.16 is required and 0.23 is proposed. Front yard setback variance, where 50 feet is required. The existing dwelling is at 46.66 feet, which we will continue with the addition. And we are proposing a front porch portico that's at 40.58 feet. And then a accessory structure setback where 20 feet is required from the side yard. We are proposing 10 feet at the side yard. Those are our 3 variances. So I would like to dive right into an explanation of the property and the project, and then I would like to answer the comments that were in the review memo. So we have a existing property, block 3.74, lot 14 in zone R20. The existing lot size is 15,000 square feet, so we are a bit of an undersized existing lot, and that's actually quite consistent lot size with the neighbors. If you look at the tax map that's on the cover page, you'll see that a lot of those lots are 100 by 150 deep. The existing property is developed with a 1.5-story Cape Cod style frame dwelling, no garage on the site currently, and there is a shed in the rear of the property that we'll address a little bit later, as it was noted in the review memo. There's some existing nonconformities that I noted. There's the lot area that's existing nonconforming, the front yard is also existing nonconforming, and then the accessory structure setbacks for the shed are nonconforming. The application does not propose any changes to the shed. So the nature of the application, I would love to point you to the plans to kind of walk through what we're doing. At a macro level, if you look on the cover page V1 that was submitted, these are the same drawings that were submitted. There's been no alteration to what you should have in your packet. If you look at the cover page, at the existing and demolition plot plan, you'll note some areas of coverage in red, and that will become material later when I speak about the offset in coverage. It was our objective to remain under the 25% impervious coverage requirement, and as such, we needed to remove some of the existing paving to accommodate for the square footage of the new garage. So that plot plan up top is indicative of some removals of paved areas, and then at this plan on the bottom half of the page, you see our proposed 2-car garage 10 feet from the property line. You see an addition to the side of the existing dwelling, and then an indication that we're building over the existing dwelling. As a quick summary of what the changes are that we made, I'll just flip through some of the plans for us. So on page V3, I will go to, V4. So just a quick summary of the expansion so it makes sense where the square footage is going, especially with relation to the FAR. The existing dwelling is 2 bedrooms on the first floor with some pretty limited living space. What we did with this addition of about 265 square feet on the right side of the dwelling was we kind of just relocated those bedrooms that exist today. So there's 2 bedrooms existing on the first floor. We maintain those 2 bedrooms in the proposed addition. We just slide them over so they're a little bit larger, 12 by 14, and 12 by 14 is a good size bedroom space. And we reallocated the square footage that those bedrooms consumed to a little bit more living space on the first floor. So that was the strategy of expansion on the first floor. Again, about a net 265 square feet on that floor. The majority of the work as it relates to the FAR is the second floor and the attic. So what had been a couple bedrooms upstairs, as is typical of a cape under the roof line, we're proposing raising that roof up to the second floor plate and having 3 bedrooms on the second floor. So 2 regular bedrooms and then a primary bedroom suite. So it brings the total of the home to 5 bedrooms. And I think that's important to note because I know that one of the concerns with FAR is the density or overutilization of a property. I would say that a 5-bedroom home on a 15,000 square foot lot is an appropriate size and scale of density in terms of that regard. And then the attic, we're proposing a walk-up attic utilizing that under roof space, right? So whether or not we finish the attic, we would have that steeper pitched colonial style gable roof. What we opted to do was make the most use of that. By finishing that space, you'll see it's called out as a recreation space, a movie room with no windows so that they can have the TV up there for viewing, and then an unfinished attic space with that tray ceiling below, so there'll be some mechanicals, utilities, and storage. And it's worth noting, that the attic square footage contributes about 4.5% to FAR. And why do I say that? I say that because that 4.5%, that 560 square feet, is tucked under the roof. So in terms of massing and development on the lot, it's kind of hidden behind that main roof line, and it's more diminutive on the property. So that's an overview of the interior flow of the house. I'll pivot to the exterior, and I know there was a comment in one of the review memos from a planning perspective on the exterior aesthetic as it relates to the current design. So as I mentioned, we have a Cape Cod design existing with 4 bedrooms total. We moved that up to 5 bedrooms. We lifted the roof plate up to the 2nd floor, and we developed the 2nd floor. Now this becomes a center hall colonial aesthetic. You've seen others in that immediate neighborhood and the greater area in Bound Brook in that R20 zone. So I would say that from a neighborhood compatibility perspective, this is very compatible. We kept the double hung window aesthetic from the existing Cape. We kept the shutters from the existing Cape. We even actually kept this skirt roof, which would have been at a similar height to the existing Cape Cod's gutter line, in an attempt to keep the massing a little bit, again, more diminutive on the property. By maintaining that roof line, we break the scale of the house, and you see the 2 stories. And as I mentioned, the attic is mainly behind this main gable that you see, and we have a couple front-facing gables, again, just for aesthetics. So that's the exterior. I'll pivot to the garage, and then I'll walk through the memos, and then I'll be happy for questions. So the garage was a bit of a dance and a balance from a design and planning perspective on the property. You'll note, if you were to look back at the cover page, that we shortened the length of the driveway. This was so that we could stay under the impervious coverage. But what that did is that brought the garage closer to the house. And if you note on the cover page, we have the garage at 20 feet from the dwelling. We feel that this is appropriate enough for maneuvering in and out without risk of damage to the dwelling and safety concerns. But with that said, we needed it to be closer to the left property line for ingress and egress into the garage. So again, this was a balance. How far forward can I come to minimize impervious coverage while still maintaining access in and out of the 2-car garage? And the offset was to push it to the 10-foot mark next to the abutting neighbor. It is a 2-car garage with 2 individual doors. The design of the garage is designed to match the materials and the architectural language of the house. We have a maximum height of 16 feet, which we believe conforms. And a couple other notes about the garage itself. Where it sits on the property as proposed would be well behind the left side neighbor's house. So we're not proposing to build this structure directly adjacent to the neighbor's house. And also, if you look at least Google Maps, and it exists in reality, the 2 rear lots have detached garages that are closer than 20 feet to the setbacks. So there is also a precedent that this would not be completely out of character with the existing development of those abutting lots. So that's my story with the garage. The next pages have some existing photos and some renderings that you've seen. So I would just want to attend to some of the comments in the memo. If anyone wants to interject a question, certainly feel free, but I'll be wrapped up in another 5. So I won't go into detail on each of these, but in that review memo that was dated November 15th, on page 7, walking down the items, item 1, we spoke about the architectural style. Item 2 references the existing shed and if it could be moved. It would be the applicant's strong preference, and I'll flip back to the cover page. It would be the applicant's strong preference to maintain that shed where it is, because with the garage placed here, the shed can't really move forward enough without contacting the garage, and if it moves over more, it starts to encroach on the usable yard. It's already an undersized lot. They have limited rear yard space, and they're trying to keep that as open and contiguous as possible. And it's also in a corner that abuts those existing detached garages on the rear properties, and there's no development on this left property. So again, it would be the applicant's desire to maintain that shed as it is. The testimony for the C variance we'll get to in summary. Testimony for D variance we'll also get to in summary. That's item 4. Item 5 I covered in direct testimony. Item 6 I alluded to a bit, but I want to restate that with regard to the FAR variance, the FAR is intended twofold, right? To control bulk on the site, like how much development is on the site in terms of bulk and massing, and also intensity of use and density of development. As I testified to, it's a 5-bedroom dwelling, which is very appropriate for a 15,000 square foot home. And the design of this colonial house with the skirt roof brings down the feeling of the massing. We're not proposing some modern 2.5-story straight walls, no breaks, no ins and outs of the facade. What we feel we're proposing is aesthetically pleasing to offset that FAR. Noted on number 7 as well, and yes, we are within 1 square foot of the 25% impervious, and that is, as I stated, intentional. We wanted to use everything we could without exceeding and requesting that variance. On the engineering standpoint, there will be 1 tree. We do not have a tree survey, but empirically, through the applicant's telling, it's roughly a 6-inch caliper maple. Oh, it's on the survey. So we have a 6-inch red maple. There we go. On that 1 tree that's on the survey, which if you don't have the survey handy, it's also on the cover page. We have that 1 tree being removed. We don't have to affect any of the other trees on the property with the development. Thank you. Item 2 notes that we would note that it's a minor development, and we would add that note to the plan if this was seen favorably. Item 3, the applicant has lived in the property for 3 years. They have stated to me that they have not experienced any standing water or any water issues on their property. It is a very flat lot, and it abuts a flat block of lots. And about a couple hundred feet to the south, there are storm inlets on the street as well. So our understanding of the drainage is that sheet flows to street and then sheet flows to the existing inlets. And I will state that we are only increasing impervious by 0.7%, so 0.7%. So I would state that it's a negligible increase in impervious as it relates to additional surface flow. And that would actually be my answer to item 4. While we are very open to the board engineer and any requirements or requests they have in terms of on-site stormwater management, we are open to that if that's a condition of approval. We feel that at 0.7 impervious coverage increase, that would not be necessary.
Now, I did speak to Mr. Burr today, and he would like you to stipulate that if the township engineer does have any issues with this, that you're going to work with him. He doesn't think there will be, but if there is...
We absolutely agree with that.
Okay, so you would stipulate to working with the township engineer on any stormwater management? And also, are the leaders being gathered and put to the street, or are they just being dumped at the base of the house?
They are currently designed to be dumped at the base of the house.
And that's
Again,
your
that would be
plan?
something that we would be open to discussion with.
It's just something you need to run past him just to get his okay, and I think he will be okay, but just something you want to run by.
Yeah, understood, and we agree to that as a condition.
Thank you.
And then my understanding is that there would be no utility improvement. You do not need you don't need a gas line improvement or a water line improvement as part of, I'm looking at you.
No, I don't think we need any.
So on item 5 was about a road opening permit, And our understanding is that the utilities are sufficient for the current and proposed dwelling, and that we would not need a road opening permit. If during construction, for some reason, it was discovered that something was undersized, I mean, we would go through all the required permits, but again, from our observation and us being on site, we do not observe that. Yes?
How many amps to the house now?
I don't know if I have that handy. Do you know if you're 100 amp or 200 amp?
Would you take this speaker?
I'm sorry, I said, I don't know if it's a 200 amp circuit or not, but I know once we, if approved, we will increase it to 200 amps.
And it's currently an overhead service, and you would keep it an overhead service?
That is correct.
So it would not be trenching.
It's probably 100 amps now, and you're going to go to 200 amps.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Please. You know, on the chart that is in our report,
Yep.
it says the maximum improved lot coverage. What is proposed is 1 square foot less than what it would create beyond the 3750.
Agree.
Right. 1 square foot. Is there some way you can reduce the driveway so that it's not just 1 square foot, maybe like by 20 square feet or 25 square feet, so that, you know, even during construction, that 1 square foot could be gone and you will be, again, violating the requirements.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I gather that we would be open if that was a big sticking point for the board. We would be open to that discussion. I would say that we are conforming, and we will be held to conforming when we do the proposed application, the proposed development. So we would prefer to keep it at the level that we're at, just because we had to do, they took away from their existing patio size already and limited their outdoor space, so.
Like a 6-inch decrease on the top or somewhere on the side to make it like, you know, 25 square feet less than what is the maximum.
Yeah, as I said, we would prefer not to do that, but if that becomes a major sticking point for the board, we are, of course, open to some modification.
And then the second question is for the applicant. You know, your house is going to be more than double the present size, right? So are you planning for some additional family members to join you or something
Yes,
like that?
my wife and I have been married for close to 2 years now, and we're planning to increase our family, and we want to make sure we have the adequate space and a safe space in order to have that for the kids.
Okay, okay.
Oh, no in-laws plan to move with us. I mean, my wife originally is from France, so her mother does come visit us quite often, because that's the only relative. I mean, she doesn't have much relative here, but no one plans to live with us, but we do plan on growing our family in the near future.
Question? Where can I see the garage in relationship to the house? Which drawing?
That would be best seen on V1, the cover page.
V1.
Yep, and on the bottom drawing labeled Drawing 2 Proposed Plot Plan, there's a block. It's got a small label, but that small label says New Proposed Detached Garage. So it's that block with that left diagonal crosshatch. And then if you look closely, you'll actually see a dimension tick there with a little arced line, and that says the proposed 20 feet from garage to dwelling.
I must be blind. I can't see.
I could walk over there. I don't know if you look, that this block on that bottom drawing is the garage block.
This is the garage? No.
That's the drawing.
Where? That's the shed. This is the garage?
Yes.
Okay. So it's almost attached to the house, or no?
It's 20 feet away, so we have required setback distances, and then we were just, again, best practice so that cars could maneuver safely.
Are you going to have a covered walkway or anything?
No, there's no intent to connect the two.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Question? The one thing that caught my attention in your application is the floor area ratio, and you did address that once or twice and spoke to how, from an architectural perspective, you've tried to minimize the massing effect of what you're proposing to do. Talk to me about how the proposed structure fits in with the neighborhood.
So there's been some other applications before the board, and I absolutely know that every application stands on its own merit, so I'm not using it as a point of reference for that, but there's been applications before the board for other developments similar to this in terms of raising, because the old texture of that neighborhood is definitely a lot of 1.5-story capes, but there are signs of development and some redeveloped properties around there that are moving towards the 2.5-story colonial. And again, there's been other applications approved that have a similar aesthetic. And so my long answer to that is that this fits in with the current landscape because there's enough variety of dwelling types in the immediate, let's say 3 blocks in each direction, that this will not stand out as the only 2.5-story type home. And again, my argument that I'll restate is that you wouldn't drive by this on this lot and feel that this must have had an FAR variance because 4.5% of that FAR is within the attic space itself, not across the first 2 floors.
I'm concerned a bit also about the massing impact on the home that's directly behind this home. And when I drove by, I thought I saw a picket fence along the rear property line. Is that right? Is there a fence back there?
Yes, there is a fence that separates our property and the property behind.
And it's a picket fence, right? So it's about 6 feet high, I'm guessing. Is that about right?
I don't think it's 6 feet high because when they were cutting the tree, I stood over and spoke to my neighbor. And I'm only 5'8".
Okay,
I'm not
so
sure
it
it's-
wasn't any taller than you.
No, no. If it's taller than me, maybe by an inch or 2, but I don't think it's 6 feet.
Okay, is there anything else back there in terms of shrubbery, for example, that would act as a buffer between your proposed home and the home behind you?
No, there's only a tree that is at the border of our property and the property behind.
So there is a tree?
Yes, there is a tree.
Okay.
And I'll just also respond to that, it's a great question. Fortunately, while a 50-foot rear yard setback is required, we're upwards of 72 feet. So we do also have that extra buffer. And now with our development maxed out, we couldn't push any closer to them without revisiting the board anyway. So.
Thank you.
Is there anything you could do? I think Mr. Sweeney raises a pretty valid point here in terms of vegetative buffer. You are taking one tree out, and I was asked by a council member to go back and pull all of our cases for 2024 and come up with a gross tree loss, tree gain. And we've done a really good job as a board. We're a net positive. And you're going to put me into a dangerous single-digit area. I'd like you to plant some trees to create that vegetative buffer, I guess, is my long-winded way of saying this.
I'm happy to plant some trees. And it's also, my wife and I plan on keeping the small red maple because we actually like it. So we plan, if we can, move it to the front yard. That's what we were planning.
Oh, you're going to transplant it?
Yeah, we were trying. If we can, that's...
Your testimony was wrong.
I was unaware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we're removing it in order to accommodate the addition, but we would, if we can, move it to the front yard.
Would you want to commit to any other plantings on the property?
Yes, we can, as needed by the board. I mean,
In the area Mr. Sweeney just mentioned,
Yep,
and maybe in the back, and
we certainly can do that. Yes.
great, thank you.
You're welcome. Right. That's a very fair statement. And to your point, we would accommodate that within the approved coverage. Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that.
I do have some questions about the roof.
Okay.
How would you describe the picture compared to other roofs?
So, yeah, so there's other, so the capes themselves in this neighborhood would generally be a 9-on-12 to a 12-on-12 because they need that pitch to have the space of, because most of them have 2 rooms in it. So We opted for a 12 on 12, which is probably the steepest I would go for a colonial. Past that, you start pressing into Tudor and some other lines, but it's still within the range of, again, a 9 on 12 to a 12 on 12. And the pitch of it itself would be pretty imperceptible. The difference between a 9 on 12 and a 12 on 12 would be pretty imperceptible from the street, if that answers it, but it's in the range of what you would see in that neighborhood. Yeah, correct. And that, yeah, what the current house is a cape too, and that, I don't have the pitch of the cape, I don't think. I might have it on the elevations, but I know it would be between that 9 and 12, because that's the only way to get living space under it.
Would you be concerned at all from street level, the perception of the size of that roof with the house, compared to the other? I know you're below the 35 foot, but you're getting pretty close there.
I agree, and I think if we look at, this is a relatively indicative view on sheet V11, that 3D. When you look at it from ground level, you don't perceive it the same. When you're looking at those flat elevations that I presented to you, it looks quite tall. I agree with you. But in perspective from the street, it's going to taper away just like the capes and everything.
And the pitch is what's kind of giving you more space.
The pitch gives it more space, and the pitch allows for the aesthetically pleasing pitch of these front-facing gables. If I go too shallow, then these start to get shallower facing the street, and the whole aesthetic of a colonial kind of falls apart.
And then one of the gable ends you showed egress window. Are you planning to put a bedroom up there?
Bedroom where in the no bedrooms in the attic. That egress window is most likely going to be on the side where the master bedroom is going to be unfinished attic space. No, we do not have a basement.
Yeah, that was
Correct.
I should have stated that earlier. Yeah, it's a slab on grade, existing slab on grade, so they don't have the basement space. So we're translating some of that space into the attic.
Any other board questions? We're professionals.
Thank you. The board has asked a lot of the good questions that I would like to have asked, but I appreciate the insightful questions and the testimony by the applicant. I think a good point was made, and I raised that 1 square foot under the 25% allowance. I do not disagree that it is conforming in respect to that, but I think as this board has highlighted, if there is even a field change for construction or the addition of a generator pad or an AC pad, you might want to be a little bit lower to make room for that. A generator pad or AC pad is usually about 30 square feet max. So they aren't on the plans, and they probably should be shown on the plans because I assume that they're going to have probably central air. I think there might be some room, maybe in the patio or other places where it could get shaved off. But I also, I brought up it kind of works in tandem. The shed is non-conforming, but I wanted to ask the applicant, and when they're done, I can ask if the garage has any additional space for storage that could take the place of the shed. If the proposed garage has additional room for storage of things that would normally go in a shed, is there any room kind of built into that garage?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to keep the shed because if we have like lawnmowers and things of that nature, we would store it in there. The garage would be used for the vehicles and also potentially kids' bikes and kids' toys and things of that nature.
Okay. I do see wiggle room there if the shed is something that could be up for grabs to lose some of the impervious coverage, so there is wiggle room for other things. It's about 85 square feet, so that's just a consideration that the applicant might want to have. Like I said, they are conforming in the respect of the impervious coverage, but I think that might give them some potential wiggle room for future additions.
You guys hear what's happening here, right? If you have any kind of problems, you're going to have to come back for a D variance. Okay. As long as you hear it. All right.
And my sidebar with the applicant was to see, we have a little tail that we added of the driveway to the side of the garage, and in discussing with the applicant, the intent is for them to be able to pass to the house there, so if they pull the cars in or park here, they'll have somewhere to walk that's not on the grass. So my suggestion to the applicant was, oh, can we push this in? Their response was, we would really prefer to maintain that so that we have a pathway to the house. So we're listening to the feedback and seeing if there's somewhere to lose square footage, is what I'm
The
saying.
shed does sound like the easiest place to lose it, and it buys you a lot of breathing room, and
They make smaller sheds too.
yes.
And more, I mean, is that a wood shed?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't think my wife and I would be opposed to moving the shed, but the fact that it is non-conforming, if we were to move it, then it would have to be conforming, and then it would mess up the functionality and the usability of our yard.
It's your application. And
So that's the reason. I mean, if the board would allow us to put a smaller shed there, I think we would be okay with that. But if we have to remove the shed completely and then,
this is something that we can address during deliberations if it is an issue with the board, and we can open the discussions back
Appreciate
up.
that.
These were just suggestions.
I just wanted to more hear from the applicant because I agree with you 100%. I want to make sure you guys address it and you hear it, and the disclaimer has been aired, and you guys know where we're at.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. As far as the FAR, I've outlined what the calculations are and what is proposed, what's allowed, and what the variance looks like. I think we've heard a little bit about, from the architect in particular, about how the building's been designed, how that helps with massing from an FAR perspective. I think the point that I brought up about the garage is that FAR does not include utility spaces or garage spaces, and so it is a separate building, but it doesn't contribute technically to that calculation. So let's say if you included it, it would be even higher. The other thing to note is that this is an undersized lot. I don't know if I provided that that calculation difference, but if it was a 20,000 square foot lot, they would be about 185 square feet over. So just keeping in the context of if this was a conforming lot, what the FAR calculation would look like when it's 0.23, it would be about 185 square feet over versus the almost 1,350 over right now. As mentioned by Chairman Foose, Mr. Burr is not here tonight, but I think that he would, as we did in past applications when he's not present, to include something in the resolution, if this is approved, about him having the ability to include any kind of stormwater management mitigation, if it's so determined at the level of engineering between the applicant and him. Other than that, I don't have many other comments. As you can see, from my memo, there are some pre-existing nonconformities, there are some bulk variances, there are some D-variances, so there's a lot going on, and I think as long as the applicant is willing to work with the board and some of the kind of commentary that we've had back and forth, like the plantings, like maybe a smaller shed, like making some wiggle room for other things in the future, that is something that the board should consider as it deliberates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing further from the board, I'm going to open.
Jeff, I have a question.
Please, Mr. Seacat.
I have a question about the location of the garage in relation to the main building. It seems like the alignment is odd to me. Like if you were looking at the garage from the front street, that you would see like half of a garage door of, I'd say the left garage door. Is that right? Like the rest of it would be blocked by the house.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, you are correct. If you were standing straight on facing the house, you would see a full garage bay and the half of the right garage bay. You don't often experience anything statically, so that was part of the reason for showing the bottom left rendering on V11. Shows you the experience of as you would drive down the street, you'd see the garage in full, and then it would disappear past the house. So,
Did you consider like a side entry where the door is facing the side of the lot?
That's a great question.
And pushing the garage maybe closer toward the center of the lot?
Yeah, we thought about that. The two offsets to that is, number one, it really would kill usable space in the yard, which is not ideal. But more importantly, to do that, we would add another 500 square foot of impervious to achieve the side entry pavement. Because to maneuver in and out from side entry, because of the K-turns, you need a good 30 feet of pavement before you enter the garage. This is extremely efficient use of pavement. So again, not ideal, but I did mention in the beginning that we really played with permutations of garage location to try to find the best compromise.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'm going to open it up to members of the public that would like to ask questions on anything they've heard thus far in this application. All right, seeing none, back to you if you want to wrap up.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll say that I didn't say would be that just regarding the front yard setback specifically, I just wanted to put it on record that it's a 34 square foot open porch that's encroaching on the front yard setback. It's just at the first story height, so it has a really minimal impact on the neighborhood. And I will also point out that the two homes to the left and the right, the entire principal dwelling sits in front of our principal dwelling. So while we are non-conforming, our neighbors are actually even less conforming than we are with regard to front yard. And I'll leave it at that.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, again, I'm going to open it up to members of the public that would like to speak for or against this application. All right, seeing none, Rich, could you take us through any stipulation and any other matters before we deliberate?
Sure. So there were a few things we discussed as conditions. One, well, more of a stipulation with respect to working with the engineer in the event he felt that there was some additional stormwater to address, that you would do that. You'll provide a new landscaping plan along the rear property line, right, to create a buffer from your rear neighbor. You'll provide an as-built calculation of the improved lot coverage to confirm that you did not exceed the permitted amount.
And on that landscape plan, you're going to show the red maple this with the 6-inch trunk. We're going to move that to the front of the house, right?
Yes, for the record.
How tall is this tree we've been talking about for about 40 minutes now?
What, I'm sorry?
How tall is this tree that we've been talking for about 40 minutes now about?
It's not very tall.
Okay, so it's probably easy to, okay, I was just curious.
It's a smaller tree.
We're going to open up deliberations, and if we could also, talk about the shed, and, if you feel it should be a smaller shed or no shed or a movement of the shed, you can let us know, and open it up with you, Mr. Wiley.
Actually, this morning, I drove past the property. I'm familiar with the area. I'm down there almost every day for something. One thing that caught me was, if you drive down your street, on your side of the road, most of the houses are all about the same. Like I said, someone has a front deck or something like that. But then when I turned around the driveway next to you and then parked in front for a minute just to get a view of the back and the shed and all that, I noticed across the street, someone had expanded their house, and one is under construction on the corner, I believe. So then I came back, and then I was driving out back to Mountain Avenue, and there's, like you said, there's several other ones that have done a similar type of construction, I guess, over the last few years. And I came back, looked at the plans. I said, let me do it while it's fresh in mind. So I had it, looked at it. So my vision was that it's going to be a similar type of expansion to what the other people have done, which is probably correct. As far as the shed, I'd like it smaller. It's not going to affect my decision. It really won't. So basically, I'm for the application. I'm glad you want to stay here, expand your family, do everything and all that. It's a nice neighborhood, so I'm in favor of it. And it'll fit nicely in the neighborhood with what other people are doing too.
Thank you. Mr. Seacat, let's start down to you.
Sure. As I mentioned before, the alignment, it does bother me a little. I understand why, due to the impervious coverage, trying to mitigate that. Aside from that, I have no other reasons to not support it, so I would support it.
Thank you. Mr. Vessia.
Looking at the area and comparing the plans that are proposed to this board here, I do feel that it would be, appears to be the largest structure you would have on Hawthorne Avenue, height-wise. We've had other cases in front of this board in your neighborhood with 1,500 square foot lots that were non-conforming. And one of the reasons I've used to proven stands behind those applications was that, if you look at that square footage of lot, and if you kind of looked at 20,000 square foot, and what that would give you in terms of square footage, they were generally all under that. And this application is about 200, a little under 200 square feet more. In the current stand, I would not be for the application. I think there's some very easy things, but I think my line here would be that it would not exceed the 3,200 square feet in size.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sweeney?
As I noted earlier, my primary concern was the floor area ratio. And I appreciate the comments that the applicant, through the architect, has made about how they've tried to minimize at least the appearance of that massing. I also took a look, as others have mentioned, at what the square footage relative to a 20,000 square foot lot would be, and it turns out to be 0.169 as opposed to the 0.16 that's allowed. I don't look at that as a big problem. I also drove around the neighborhood, and it's clearly a neighborhood in transition. There are some newer, big homes going up. In fact, I think there was one at the corner of Hawthorne and Shepherd, which looked like it still had the stickers on the new windows. And it's a big house, and I suspect it's comparable in size to what's being proposed here. So it's a neighborhood in transition. You're going to see big homes popping up where the neighborhood used to be dominated by small homes. I think overall the neighborhood would benefit from this work, and I'm in favor of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mrs. Amin?
The applicant is expanding the house, making it bigger to accommodate his family members and all that. And my only concern was about the driveway being too close to the improved coverage laws. So if that can be addressed and taken care of along with other comments, I'm in favor of approving.
Thank you. It's 15,000 square feet. It's a tight lot. I went back and I looked at previous applications of your neighbors. We heard a house on Shepherd. We've heard a house on Park, and I think we've heard a house on your street. And they're all very similar. There's really nothing here that's fundamentally different than what we've seen in other applications. The shed, I think you would be wise to just maybe punt on it, but it's not going to affect my vote. When you come down and you look at the positive criteria for a D4, can the site accommodate the problems associated with a greater than maximum FAR permitted by the zoning? And I do think that is definitely possible. I think you have a very skilled architect, and I think he's taken great pains to maximize the floor plan without, basically going over other impervious limits. I certainly don't think there's any detriment to the public good here. If anything, there's a positive benefit to the improvement in your neighborhood. And I certainly don't think there's any substantial impairment to the intent or purpose of our master plan. So I'd be in favor. And the shed, I think, is something that, you're going to hear the rest of the board deliberate with. It sounds like we already have one member that's kind of on the fence, and you may want to, chime in here. But I'm in favor overall. Mr. Bongiorno.
I am thankful that, as you had stated, that you try to stay within the requirements for this particular zone, because you are the first applicant that I have seen that has done that, and I appreciate that. I think, again, it's a very small lot. You want to grow your family, this is the only way to do it. I'm in favor of the applicant, and good luck.
Mr. Gajewski.
Yeah, I would agree with everything the board members are saying. I think the lack of a basement, too, is something you really have to take into consideration. A lot of us with basements have a lot more space, right? So that contributes to a lot of that. As far as the shed in the back, I don't think it's a deal breaker for myself either. I would warn you, particularly since you're talking about having children, that when you don't see something in the back and doors are left open, animals move in, right? So be careful. Other than that, I think it will add and enhance the neighborhood, and I hope you're building a house that you want to live next to, and you're there for a while.
Thank you. Mr. Kulak.
I too would agree with most of the comments that the board has made. As I've driven around the neighborhood, I saw a lot of the improvements that were cited. I saw similar examples of garages where they were not fully visible, but they were large garages. I think 840 has one as well. And as everyone has said, this is a neighborhood in transition. You're improving not only the look, but the usability of the homes. I think it's going to be a great addition, and I similarly would approve this.
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier that you're real close on the one limit, the impervious coverage, but I will caution again, things happen, but assuming that things don't happen, I don't see any detriment to the community. As a couple people have said, it sounds like it'd be a nice improvement to the neighborhood, so I would be in favor.
All right, you've heard our deliberations, and
Yeah, may I?
looks like you have a comment.
I do. So we take the impervious coverage and the shed commentary to heart in a quickly conferring with the applicant. What I would like to suggest is that we knock the shed to a 6x8, which would be a 48 square foot shed instead of the roughly 80 square foot. What would be extremely ideal is if it could be in the same location but downsized. So then we accomplish two things. We minimize the size of the shed, and we also create the buffer of impervious, which is well noted. So now we would be about 40 square feet below the impervious threshold to give, not to add back anywhere, to give a buffer. That's what we would like to associate with any approval that you find.
Okay. Based on the additional testimony, does anyone have any further comment to add to the deliberations?
Would it be separate, detached from that, or is it possible to?
So what I'm proposing is we have the shed here now.
Yeah.
We would pin the closest inward corner and locate the 6x8 shed there. So we would be improving the setbacks nominally, but the bigger improvement would be on the coverage.
So I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So what would the rear yard setback be and the side yard setback be at that point? Because you have it dimensioned here at 7.04.
Yeah, what I'm not clear on right at the very moment is the exact dimensions of the shed. Otherwise, I could do the math for you, but unless...
Well, are you working off that point, that 7.04?
No, I was actually suggesting working off the inner corner and then going the 6x8, and so then we'd have an improvement of roughly 2 feet in each direction. Again, I do not have that exact figure, but it would be an improvement. We could furnish that.
Okay, so then it would be better than what we're looking at? Okay. All right, so if the board's okay with that as the definition, that it would be improving this situation from the setbacks, okay? Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Based on the additional comments, does the board have a motion?
I move
Mr. Widley?
with the change.
With the change.
Second.
That's Mr. Bongiorno on the second. Yeah, take your time. Yeah.
We're just looking at
Yeah, so they may actually then comply with the side yard.
if they do have a smaller shed and it is
Right.
the architect had just mentioned, I think that yes, they probably would comply.
Yeah.
If at 10 feet, we can agree to comply with the
You
setback.
can hold a 10-foot side
We
yard.
would reposition the new shed at 10 foot from both property
We'll
lines.
just write the resolution to reflect that.
But not the
Thank you for
rear,
that. No,
right?
that's helpful.
But not the rear yard? The rear yard, you're still going to
The rear
hold
as well.
around 7?
No, I'm saying because of the reduction in the size of the shed, we would be able to accommodate 10 foot from rear and 10 foot from side.
From both? Okay. Yeah, so then it's conforming, right? Okay, perfect.
Great.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Can I have a roll call?
Can I just tell me who made the motion?
That was Mr. Widley, and the second was Mr. Bongiorno.
Chairman Foose,
Yes.
Mr. Wadley?
Yes.
Ms. Amin? Mrs. Amin?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Fresco? Sorry. Mr. Bongiorno?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
And Mr. Seacat?
Yes.
All right. Best of luck to you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Good
Happy
job.
Thanksgiving, and thanks for your time.
All right, we are done with our cases for tonight. Our next meeting is scheduled, Nancy, December 10th. And I believe we have a solar case and a residential case.
Yes, we have the Asante property and solar landscape.
All right.
Asante's 10 Asante Lane, solar landscapes, 3 to 5 Findern.
All right, if there's no other board business, we'll see you December 10th, 7 PM. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Mr.
Second.
Wadley and Mr. Bongiorno. Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
And mine are yours.
This is my packet. You're welcome to it.
No, I have.
Nice and
Whatever you want, it's all yours.